Sooners of Oklahoma at 12-0 and still looking for respect nationwide.
What is going on, Sooner Nation? Thank you all for tuning in to another episode of the Barry and Mack Show. As always, myself, Barry, personal trainer, sports performance coach out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and alongside me, former Sooner wide receiver, 2000 national champ, Mr. Damian Mackey. How are we doing this Sunday afternoon, D. Mack?
Disclaimer. Can I say a disclaimer right at the beginning? Am I okay to do that?
Go for it.
Bro, the shade indoors. What are we doing? I just looked up my man. Oh, I'm gonna start calling you Boz, baby. Barry Boz.
I had to do something, man. The performance was so awful last night that I've got to try and block it from the view. We'll get into it. I watched that whole game last evening, and we're going to discuss it, and then we're going to move on because I think Sooner fans are ready to get this season over and done with.
Can I make a disclaimer?
What's up?
You distracted me with the shades. You distracted me. I did not watch the game. I worked last night. I posted on Twitter. By the way, this is a true story. It's the end. It's like the middle of the fourth quarter. I look up and we're down like 37-14 or something, whatever the score is. And I said, should I watch the game? 100% said, don't watch the game. Then I went to Rivals and I said, should I watch the game? 100% said burn the tape. So I'm going to give my analysis today with having not watched the game, but I'm pretty sure I can probably make some guesstimations to what happened. And so we'll see. I will say this. I heard that the DBs got cooked, which was something I was not expecting. But if you remember on the pregame, I said, if you go back and listen, and there was some sunshine pumping, but I did say this. If we don't bring pressure and we let Nussmeier, whatever his name is, have comfortable pockets or just the ability to have time, he is going to cook us. People were saying they didn't have receivers. You're wild. And I think we now know they have receivers. And that's why I can throw the ball. Remember I said, hey, they can throw the ball. If we don't show we can throw the ball, we're in trouble. I mean, and I heard apparently Jackson had a better night throw. I'm going to look at the stats here in a second. But didn't watch the game, guys. So, I feel like some of my hot takes, Barry, let me know if I'm missing the mark or anything.
All right.
Otherwise, we're going to spend some time talking about postseason, OC, exit interviews, things of that nature. I think
that's more interesting.
Yeah. Let's do it. And I'm looking up some data right now.
Let's go. Well, I'm just going to give you the highlights, man, and feel free to chime in with whether or not that was expected. But OU came in to the game and opened up not playing bad. OU had a solid quarter in 3 minutes of really solid
18 minutes
football. Basically 18 minutes of really good football. I won't say really good football. They hung with a team that is not your LSU team of Joe Burrow, of the Nick Sabans, of some of those Les Miles teams. This is as LSU would tell you, this team was ready to quit multiple times this year, as LSU fans would say. Ready to fire the coach. Ready to burn the thing down. They were over, done with. And the same way that OU bullied and dominated Alabama on the perimeter and at the line of scrimmage in terms of blocking, not necessarily in the pass game, but the same way Alabama did that, or OU did that to Alabama, LSU did that to the Sooners as the game wore on. I will say pass rush was pretty good. And there was a point where Nussmeier was potentially knocked out of the game, weren't sure what would happen. I had a bunch of people messaging me saying they need to hire whoever's on the training staff for LSU right now and get him over to Oklahoma, because whatever they gave Nussmeier, whatever they gave him, man, he came out there and was a different player. He was an animal, right? They probably gave him a little something back there in the locker room and took care of him, because he was shoulder pads off, D-Mac. It was RMT, had a pretty good hit on him.
I saw that
RMT
play.
made some money last night. Yeah. So I'm gonna let you from here on out. I kind of gave the bare bones. I want you to tell me, what do you think happened with the offense? And I'm gonna check box yes or no. But I want you to give me your thoughts of just based on the things that were said, based on the final score. How do you think this thing played out?
So double disclaimer, I guess I wouldn't say I lied, but I told a half truth. I watched probably the middle of the first quarter to halftime. So people are asking, how did I miss the game? I'm an entrepreneur. I own my own business. I own an insurance agency and I have a coaching business. And I was meeting with a couple of individuals at Buffalo Wild Wings. By the way, I chose Buffalo Wild Wings because I wanted to watch the game. And so I'm meeting with some individuals, about five. We treated them to dinner. And so I was interviewing some folks watching the game. So I did see Nesselmeyer get hit. I saw the scoop and score touchdown. I think RMT scores that too, right? That's RMT, isn't
RMT
it?
scored. RMT had a
RMT
hell of a
scores
game.
that. I missed the first touchdown, but I think we got bombed. I saw another bomb. They were bombing us, like bombing us. And here's what I want to say first, Barry. And I see the comments. By the way, I do have a semi-adult beverage in here today. Um,
Let's go.
but we need to get like a scotch. I don't drink Hennessy. Somebody said I'm drinking Hennessy. That was in college and high school. I hope my mom doesn't hear that.
Oh my
Scotch guy
gosh.
now. I drink scotch now.
Let's go.
Um, Here's a mistake that I know we made, even though I didn't watch the whole game. When you hurt the quarterback and start the first quarter with the amount of pressure we were getting with basically four. Remember, I told you, I said, I hope BV doesn't do the bring four and one backer through the A gap. It's too easy to pick up. That's a JV scheme in terms of bringing pressure to a quarterback. We have to confuse them pre-snap. We got to do what we did against Bama. And what it tells me is Bama, you know what we were doing? You know why we were so multiple? Because we were run blitzing. We were run
Mhm.
blitzing on the way to the quarterback, which is why we show multiple fronts. Because if you're run blitzing, you want to confuse linemen on who they have to block, right? And so
Yep.
when I was watching the LSU game, and I'm like, you know, I saw us get pressure. I saw the scoop and score. By the way, RMT almost fumbles. I don't know if you saw that, but the guy tries to punch it out
Yeah, I
and
said that
barely
when it
keeps it.
happened.
I saw the injury. That's like one of the last plays I see. And then like every once in a while I'll look up and I see like, damn, how'd they score? Like, damn, how did we score? Right. So I kind of caught that.
Yep.
And then halftime, I didn't watch the second half, which apparently was the worst part of the game. I think philosophically, we can check the box and say, or let me frame this a different way. Barry, does it make sense to essentially hurt the quarterback, get him out of the game with pressure, right? And apparently he comes back. But wouldn't you bring more pressure?
You
If
would think.
I got hit because we couldn't block, if I saw people up multiple different looks and multiple guys coming, I'd probably be scared or have a propensity to have a short clock in my head and not get comfortable again and bomb us the second half of the game. To me, it just would have made too much sense to make it easy on the defense to say, hey, let's nullify their receivers. Okay, Kip and Stutz, I need you guys to really hone in on running back screen, running back in space, option routes, things of that nature, because that's where you can get burnt. You bring a lot of pressure, they just throw it over the pressure to a short running back or a tight end. But that's not a hard scheme for a coach to prepare guys. We're going to bring bullets, which means we got to take away quick game. Got it? Got it. To me, that just made too much sense. Their starting quarterback's hurt. If he comes back in, I want him to see 12 on the field. I want it to feel like 13 guys. And
Yep.
it just seems to me like we must have went back into bringing four or bringing a simple blitz with five, because there's no way you can throw bombs unless you have time in the pocket. And like you said, our rush was getting to him early in the first quarter with four. RMT and Downs and those guys, they were whooping their tackles' tails in the first quarter of the game. So that's something that I think coaching has to hold responsibility, and I hate to use the word blame, but I kind of, you got to blame somebody. So
Gotta blame some.
as the DC and the HBC, to me, I don't understand why we didn't take that advantage and compound it, right? So that's one thing that I don't think we need to discuss. That was something that I kind of sensed in the second half. Did we bring a ton of pressure and they were beating us, or were we kind of playing off and soft and they
They
were
played.
killing us with that?
It was a lot of off and soft. It felt as if they were really concerned about tempo. it seemed like the tempo and the speed that LSU tries to play with um, gave them some fear and trepidation. It was one of the few times that we'd seen them all almost do that. Oh my gosh, on offense they call it something. Basically, you do like a short huddle, and then
Oh,
you
muddle huddle.
clap hands and you little muddle. The defense was doing that on some of the tempo plays. I think trying to confuse LSU with looks, not knowing where guys are going to be, and then as the drive waned, they just kind of based up and tried to
Yep.
play defense. And my general thought is here was the problem to me, because the Eli Bowen got worked on a couple plays, but he was never really out of position on a lot of those. There was one to the tight end on the sideline going left to right where Jacoby, similar to the Missouri game, he just loses his footing. Right, they're doing that where the corners, we talked about it on the last show, the corners are responsible for getting over the top and getting over there. It wasn't the safeties. The
It's cover
safeties
four.
it was cover four. The safeties are more in like a run
Robbie.
support scenario. And Jacoby just misses getting over there. And I bet you they probably watched the Missouri tape and said, if we get, I mean, it's what it is. And they lined up. It was the same, very similar route combination. Wouldn't be surprised if it was arguably maybe even the same play or something very similar. But if you're going to put your guys on islands anyway, if you're going to ask Eli Bowen to man up anyway, just bring pressure. Like if that is how you're going to give, and really those were the daggers for them. OU was in this thing. The ultimate dagger was the kickoff return. It felt like OU had some momentum at the time, and when you allow a kickoff return, it is backbreaking, right? We've talked about it so much on this podcast. OU's had games where they've scored defensive touchdowns, forced a bunch of fumbles, right? That they've done a lot of good things. It always gets washed out because they allow the other team to do something like that too. So it ends up not working in your advantage, right? If you take that away, you're still 31-17, but you totally changed the tenor of the game. I think it was an error. I don't know if you saw before going in at halftime, you had some time to at least try and go get another score. And they failed to do it. They sort of slow played the whole thing, and it felt like just questionable in terms of the aggressiveness. I'll say this, and I said this on X last night in terms, and I guess this is a good way to kind of segue a little bit into the offensive coordinator discussion. I think it is unfair to have asked Joe John Finley to turn around an offense that was already so stuck in the mud, when your offense and what you do and all of your habits, your game plans, the way you're going to attack, the essence of your offense is built in the off season. And you have to be able to have time. You have to have guys healthy. You have to develop the continuity. And I know people, they don't like that word, but it's true. You have to develop
Somebody
the
said, you saw that?
continuity. Yeah, I saw that. But it's true. I would say and it hasn't been great, but for what was there, the offense has been improved. I think this offense, this version, probably handles Houston a little easier,
Yeah.
probably puts Tulane away a little faster. You're probably more in the Tennessee game. You're definitely more in the South Carolina game. I don't know if your record's different, but the competitiveness is certainly different. And Joe John's found a way to do it. You were never going to fix it. Somebody said, well, look what the 85 Sooners did when Jamel came. People forget, you ran the triple option and a wishbone the year before at an elite level in 84, right? That they still had bare bones of the wishbone. And you also had one of the best minds in Barry Switzer spirit. So when they switched from Aikman to Holloway, that wasn't like what you have in a year like this, where you're basically operating with players that are not the players that were on that 85 offense. That 85 offense had some elite talent also, right? I don't know if there's a guy on the offense right now who moves like a Jamel Holloway, who is as elusive and dynamic of a playmaker as what Jamel
Don't do that.
Holloway was.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that, Barry. Don't do that. Because
It's
we got the
facts.
pup and he plays the hardest 3 games of the season. He has one terrible
Yeah.
game. He never gets another opportunity. What does Hawkins look like the whole game against Tulane, the whole game against Houston, the whole game against Maine, the whole game against Temple with Joe John's coaching? We don't know. So I don't want to do that. We're going to talk about Jackson and what he delivers and brings to the tables. We're going to look at his data points, his stats, and all that stuff relative to his peers in the SEC. I have the numbers. I want to speak to
Yeah.
those. But I want to speak about Joe John. Salute to him.
Go for it.
He came in and fixed a calamity of errors. He came in and fixed a terrible offense, a toilet tissue single ply. Somebody yesterday said Mack, our offense is like single ply after eating Chinese and Taco Bell. Damn, like you know what I'm saying? That's
That's rough.
unfortunate, but it wasn't good enough. Number one, we continue to feature a guy who, in my opinion, probably has one of the lowest IQs in terms of mental toughness and understanding the moment in terms of Bauer Sharp. He's a guy, by the way, looks good. He can catch the ball. He's pretty good yards after the catch. He's a guy who on a team full of really good players is probably a good supplemental piece. But I think even in the preseason, and probably starting against Tennessee, or I don't remember if it was Tennessee or even if it was Tulane, he started to show signs of a guy who shrinks in the moment. And OC's job is to see that and say he's a guy who shrinks in the moment. We're not going to give him specials. You know, does that make sense? And
Yeah.
I saw the play. I didn't see the play live. I saw the play on X. That's a joke. That's absolutely something after JV football. You cannot do that. You either eat it, you throw it out of bounds. I know you were a quarterback. As a quarterback in your past, you've got to know better than to say, okay, the play side read is covered. If you guys watch the play, the backside backer or safety sees the play coming, which, by the way, it's the same play we ran last week, very similar to a play we ran last week against Bama, which is absolutely, we'll talk about that in a second. But he stays with Jackson. We try to run the end around, throw it back to the quarterback with the offensive line blocking. There's a guy literally standing next to Jackson. Okay, then Bauer Sharp looks upfield, and somebody's running with whoever it is, Brennan or Hester. You gotta throw it away. It's actually very
Or
simple.
take the sack. Or take
You're
the
already,
sack.
but he's already out of the pocket. All he's got to do is
Yeah.
make it to the line of scrimmage. He's a grown man. Like the guy, you might get hit even, but I believe at that point we're down 14. We're in the plus, like we might be on the edge of the red zone. It's a play where if we
They
score,
were.
it's a game.
And
And
they
yeah,
were
I saw it on
driving.
Twitter. We're on like the 25,
Yeah.
28, something like that. I don't know the exact yard
Yeah.
line, but I watched the play on Twitter and everybody's making fun of the play. He's got to be smart enough to not make that play in week 12. He's got to be smart enough. He's not a if Mitchell makes that play, I think we can live with it. If X Rob makes that play, I think we can live with it. A guy who's a grown man and an ex quarterback in week 12, which obviously 14th week of the college football season, you can't make that play. You just can't make that play. And Joe John, how many times has the entire Sooner Nation made fun of or critiqued or had something negative to say about something he did in another game, a drop, a fumble? I remember in the Ole Miss game, no one talks about it. He dropped a key play that kept us early in the game. We're kind of shooking and jiving, trying to hang. It's third down. Jackson throws a strike and it hits him. He's got tight coverage and he just drops it. And it's like, bro, you can't drop that ball. This offense needs guys who are going to make plays. So, and I say all that to say, in a season where you're at the last game, you still scheme him up? The guy we scheme up for jet sweeps, the guy we scheme up for 70% of the shuttle passes, the guy we've run 5 times more tight end screens than receiver screens. Help it make sense. That's a huge bag of crap that Joe John has to hold, bro. Hold that L. That's your L, and kind of Coach BV, you're okaying this in the game plan. On Tuesday practice, you guys say, hey, Joe John, why is he throwing the ball? Because coach, he's a quarterback. Yeah, but he's shrunk in the moment. 8 weeks now. That's a big moment play. That's a play where when the lights come on, I remember there are plays where you're like, oh shit, the ball's coming to me. And you're like, okay. Like I know, there's some pressure there and you're excited because you might get a TD, but he just dropped the moment play the week before when all he had to do was rotate his hips. He's expecting the ball inside shoulder, which is supposed to be, but Brennan just throws it outside shoulder. Rotate your hips, son. Catch the football, right? He shouldn't have been in that position, and I'm not surprised that he. I mean, I literally never see the play. Someone says D-Mac, I can't, or someone said I can't wait to hear D-Mac's response to the play. So I text
Yeah.
my alumni group, and I'm like, "Hey, what happened?" And they're just like, "Bro, 10 does what he's done all year." And they were like, it's probably the worst one. I was like, oh my God, he did something worse than what he's done on the jet sweep or the tight end screen or the drops or whatever, right? The fumbles, whatever he's done. And sure enough, fourth year player or fifth year player, how many years he's been in the league. And he's a quarterback 2 or 3 years ago. He was a quarterback like a few years ago. So
they talked about it on the broadcast, man.
yeah. I think I saw that on the X.
Yeah.
That's a play where your OC has to understand the player in the moment and say, dude, I've tried to throw you literally like 10 bones. This one, hey Roberts, can you throw a football? You know what I'm saying? Like you're out there.
Yeah.
Hey, Mitchell, who can throw a football? Because you don't put that kid in that position again. And of course we do. And of course, he kind of does what everybody expects him to do in that moment. Joe John, I hear X Rob didn't look like X Rob against Bama. Someone texted me and said he was tiptoeing. He was tiptoeing, or was it? I don't know.
No, I wouldn't
what was
say
the
he was
biggest issue?
tiptoeing. I think the issue was I saw somebody say, "Oh, you didn't try to run it." Oh, you did try to run inside. The QB run game worked a little bit, but the QB run game was only effective when OU went empty and they pulled that middle backer out and they would vacate in the middle. That was the most success OU had running the ball. But you called it. LSU put 7 and 8 in the box and went zero. Not the whole night. They talked about it a little bit, but they just said beat us, and we're going to be more physical. We're going to take away windows. OU, I think, by strategy, played a little more Jacob Jordan in this one. He saw much more snaps. I know Kearney got hurt in this one. That's unfortunate. Jordan played okay. He played okay. He had a first down grab.
I saw it on the
He made a
sideline. He
couple
kind of
nice
got his
routes
knee
on the
inbounds.
sideline.
I saw it.
Which was great play.
I got a question.
But
Somebody said this.
go for
Can
it.
I confirm? Can I ask you a question? Did we throw the ball on first down? Remember I said, hey, first play out the gate, I'd run action. Did we try to throw the ball the very first play of the game? Someone said we tried to throw the ball the very first play of the game.
They did try to throw the ball first play of the game. Yeah.
How'd it go?
Oh,
Do you remember?
what was that? It was incomplete.
Was it a chunk play? Were they trying to get a chunk play?
Or was it I think it was a deeper intermediate. Somebody post the play because there's one other I'm trying to remember. It was like a deeper intermediate route. But it was like one of those like outside, probably like 15, 20 yards that Jackson throws okay. But I thought OU did try to work the ball. Yeah, it was the sprint out. It wasn't that. Yeah, It was like an intermediate throw. Yeah, naked boot. Yeah, didn't they? That's right. They went. Yeah, they went. It's what they've run all year, right? Where Jackson will have like 2 or 3 options. They'll fake the run. He'll roll out, and he's got the back. He's got the tight end, and then he's got the receiver.
So they ran levels. They really ran levels, like I said. I think Coach was listening to the pod because I literally was like, if I were you, I'd run late. But that's what I said. I said run levels first play of the game. Interesting.
Yeah, JFA rolled out and threw it away. That's what it was. Yeah.
Last thing I'll say about the game before I think we move on to more important things, guys. We're 6-5, or we're 6-6. We are who we are. We are a bipolar team. I do have the game saved. I haven't erased or deleted it. I may take a peek, but I'm pretty, I heard we got behind and all of a sudden the O-line looked terrible. I saw a lot of the second quarter where even when we were in the game, this is what I did see and I want to speak to in terms of Jackson. I don't want to beat the kid up too much, but guys, if the first read's not there, he doesn't. When I'm a quarterback and I am a threat to either run or run to pass or run to get away and then pass, does that make sense? Defenses have to play on the defensive. Jackson, from the screen, watching the game from Buffalo Wild Wings, it was easy to see that as soon as he didn't like what he saw, he was just running. And with all due respect to him, he's a 4'7", not a ton of wiggle, 4.68 maybe. I think he's a 4.68 guy, but he's a 4.68 with not a ton of wiggle who's not going to try to power through tackles. It makes it too easy on the defense. And I saw a ton of people say this. I don't know if this is true, but I heard people say that there were receivers open, or there was play design where the plays design was getting guys into windows where there was possibilities. And as soon as he steps up in the pocket, he's solely looking to run, which is a great opportunity to step up in the pocket, show the threat of a run, and then hit guys. Mackie, why are you speaking about this so much? Here's why. Because when you have a let's just call it, no, you have a deficient offensive line. I think from a season standpoint, we can say they've kind of ascended a little, but they're a deficient group
They're
from
just
a year's
okay. They're
and
okay.
and sometimes get their tails kicked, right?
Yeah,
So
they're
let's say
middle to
that's your
lower half of the SEC.
whoa. They're lower half to bottom of the SEC. Let's just call it spade a spade. They're not middle.
Yeah.
Name 7 teams who have a worse O line. I can't think of 7 teams whose O line. Yes. I would say
I'll
they're
get back to you
lower
on
to
that.
bottom, just with all due respect to them.
Yeah, you're right. There's only like 3 teams that I can think of right off the top.
Here's my point. And I don't want to beat
Go
them up.
for it.
This is a Jackson, just because this is for the people. We're getting ready to do exit interviews, and I'm going to show you guys what my conversation with Jackson would be in our if I were the coach. Your quarterback has so much sway over what happens. And how many times do we see quarterbacks who in my opinion, are not as good an athlete as Jackson find a way to evade the rush, have a threat to be a potential runner, but then throw the ball to somebody when the play has broken down because they've gotten away from the initial pressure? Mackie, why is that such a big deal? Because that's something another player can come in and with the same offensive line and with the same terrible receivers, or I don't want to say terrible, but inexperienced receivers, and with a Bauer Sharp or whoever the tight ends are, and make a huge difference. Let me tell you what people can't say about a receiver group. You can say they don't get open. Obviously, you can say these are third team guys. Obviously, you can say they are inexperienced. But we did not have a huge drop issue this year. We didn't have guys where when the ball came their way and it was catchable, drop a ton of passes. That was not an issue. We never gave our younger guys an opportunity to see what could happen if a play broke down. And with a guy as talented as Jackson, literally the number 1 dual threat quarterback in America, it tells me his confidence, and I'm assuming here, I want to make sure I'm very clear in saying that, but it tells me his confidence was shot because anytime that there was any type of threat of pressure, he immediately turned to a running back. When in reality, he could get the most out of his skill set, his talent, second-tiered players. If he was a threat for defenses, if he broke contain, or if he stepped in the pocket and was able to evade or elude the pressure, and then throw a strike. That's when you didn't have to win the curl. And if the backer's sitting in the hole, right, it's not open. Okay. When you break that pressure, now it's kind of schoolyard ball. And it just feels to me like that's an area where we could have got a ton more out of him. And since we didn't, that's an area where another quarterback who's, he's probably been mentally fried. A lot of the stuff he's dealt with. I heard his spring and his fall, our defense was very hard on the offense. Obviously, during the season, he lost his job. He had some games where he did not get good protection, right? He's been through a lot. Some of his own issues, some of them team issues, some of them OC issues. Put another quarterback in there. And it'd be interesting to see if a quarterback who does not have the trauma, the PTSD that he had this season, could have done more. Because I watched a good quarter and a half of that game, Barry, and I'm just telling you, and you guys tell me if you saw it otherwise, but there were plays where it wasn't a clean pocket, but it was not just a race to the quarterback. He would step up and he was immediately a runner. 5 yards before he got to the line of scrimmage, he's a runner. And he shouldn't. He should buy time and now give guys an opportunity to be a threat where he can throw the ball, he can extend the play, or he could run the ball. I feel like if he does a little bit more of that, you get more out of your offense, your younger guys. People get they get their chemistry up, right? People get some momentum, and you extend drives. I saw him step up in the pocket, get 6, 7, 8 yards, dive, but the defense is saying he's a runner. In fact, did he ever step up, extend the play, and then throw the ball for a cash play down the field? Did that happen?
No,
It didn't
I'm
happen
trying
in
to
the
think.
portion of the game that I watched.
No, I think there might have been one late in the game. I want to say they were going right to left, and he was it was I think he evades and gets one downfield. But your point still stands, right? He's a one or two read player right
And
now,
then it's head
and
down running the football.
his head's down running the football, and that kind of goes to what I said earlier. That type of stuff that's off season built, right? What your quarterback does, had their mindset on every single play, knowing where guys are, right? It's and then not to go back and talk about Lincoln Riley, but like one of the things Lincoln talked about
I
and
see
why
what you did
OU
there.
was so successful with scramble drill was it looked like chaos, but it wasn't chaos, right? It it looks like it's a chaotic play. It looks like Mayfield's just making a whole lot of something out of nothing. And there were plays Mayfield's, ability was, as someone said, keeping his eyes downfield. He had elite balance that I think Jackson needs to work on. There's some things physically that Jackson does that bugs me. I think he needs to get in the weight room and work on a few things. One of the things that would greatly impact him is if he had a much lower acceleration angle when he first hits the gas. When he starts to take off, he is so high that he probably loses a good 2 or 3
Hmm.
steps on a player angle wise, that if he just had a lower start, right? You watch Hawkins come out when Hawkins got the ball. If he takes off to go run, those hips drop, that shin goes low, and those first 3 steps, he's getting some ground. Jackson is so slow-footed out of his first few steps that he doesn't get any ground. It's one of the reasons why he is his steps are just a little too choppy on like the sprint stuff. Guys are always just way too close to him. He doesn't get any ground on those initial steps. But OU, when they ran scramble drill, guys knew where to be. There was a plan of attack. The guys knew, like, okay, Baker's rolling this way. This is the play call. If
It's
I
a
go
play.
back this way, it's a
It's a play.
play, right?
Yep, it's a
And
play.
that stuff though is built in the off season. That is built with who your OC is. And this is where I think it's a good time to transition to exit interviews. And I want to start with Jackson, and then we'll move on to the OC. I know people are saying in the comments we are going to talk about offensive coordinator. We're going to give some
I love the
names
comments.
who
I
who
love the
we picked.
comments
They're
right now.
great today.
The comments are hilarious.
They're
Go ahead,
great,
brother. I'm
right?
sorry.
But
Go
but
ahead. Go
yo,
ahead.
you're
Yeah, yeah.
good, man. But as you said, confidence and game plan and what you do is built in all of the habits that you set forth in the off season. Very little of that can change in season, especially once your off season is shot. You basically have to have a full reset, going back saying, all right, you know what? That season's over and done with. I have a chance to physically change my body, feel different, get recovered, go back into the lab, work on what it is that I'm good at, get better at some of the weaknesses, and truly hone my skills. And then go in and see what we got next season. It's hard to do that in season. It just really is. So I will segue into saying right now, DMAC, if you yourself are sitting down with Jackson, you don't know who the OC is, right? Maybe it's this is Venables and Joe John or whoever, right? This is you're sitting down, exit interview with Jackson Arnold as to what his decision is going to be next year, what this season looked like for him. Break it down and discuss what that conversation is.
Man, I tell you what. I want to start out by I'm gonna say something tongue in cheek, but if you've ever been in a management role or a business owner role or something, there's this method. It's called the sandwich method. Do you know what the sandwich method is?
No, enlighten me
You
on the
don't know the
sandwich
sandwich
method.
method?
I don't
Does
know the
anybody know
sandwich method.
Okay, so I'm explaining the sandwich method because this is what I would use with Jackson. The sandwich method is anytime you are doing some type of debrief or some type of you're doing some type of like consultation with or meeting with people, giving them feedback, you want to say something positive before you say the critique, and then you end it
Okay.
with something
Yeah.
positive. So it's called the
The
sandwich method, right?
sandwich. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. Okay. I
so
know what that is. I've never heard the
okay.
sandwich method though. That's
So
great.
you're evaluating someone, and as we evaluate Jackson, if I were the coach, there were really three components that I would really speak to. Number one, I would talk about his progression over the course of the year. Then I'd go to raw data. All right. And then I think we'd end it with my feelings as someone who's been having a bird's eye view in terms of being able to watch all the film, and then also clearly a close one-on-one view being the HBC all season, right? Those are the three areas that I would touch on. And so um, starting out the conversation, true sophomore. I don't know if he redshirted or not, but true sophomore, redshirt freshman, whichever one he identifies as. I honestly, of course, I probably should
It
know, but I
don't
don't know. So
matter. It really
yeah,
doesn't
exactly.
matter in this day and
He
age.
played enough a lot. He played enough last year to not be extremely green, but he was still green enough to be considered a pup. To me, Jackson's still a pup, and I don't want to treat him as a guy who's had 3-4 years. It's 1.5 years or so is
Yeah.
if you ask me. But Jackson's a guy going into next season, number one. Son, last year we invested heavily into you. How do you feel you did? That'd be my first question. How do you feel you did? I'd be interested to hear what his response to that would be. And then I'd say, well, cool to hear, good, bad, or indifferent. Let me tell you what I saw. Number one, I saw a guy who, is it fair to say, from the first game of the season to the last game of the season, that you had a distinct difference in how you played on the field? Yes or no?
Oh, for sure. For
From the
sure.
first game of the season, I don't think he did. I think he showed the most swag of the year against Temple. And Temple was a game where he didn't have a ton
Mm,
of he didn't have a ton of support from the O line. The O line legitimately played bad that game, which is crazy. I think they were a detriment to his
yeah.
success. He played well against Temple. We didn't see anything that was a glaring issue in the Temple game aside
That's
from
a
the
good
offensive line not giving him time. He personally, in my opinion, played well that game. And even in a game like Bama, where the team played well and he was a good general based upon the game plan they put in place, we didn't throw the ball. And so a lot of the people that were ballyhooing the fact that we beat Bama, we're Alabama State champs, right? We can all, by the way, year one, we can claim that we're Alabama State champs.
There you go.
There was still this concern around when we have to throw the ball, will he be able to? Because we figured LSU would come in with something. So I'd ask him, do you feel like he got better? In my opinion, he didn't get better. I'm going to speak to that. Somebody,
I
if you
think
guys
that's a good point. You're right. If you're talking about in terms of just his play, quarterback, what he needs to do, I think what they asked him to do facilitated more winning football. But you're right. I don't think as a player he necessarily improved as the year went on in any specific attribute.
yeah, name one,
I think that's a fair
name one.
point. Yeah.
And I'm going somewhere with this. And that question is a critical question for me because then I pull up the data. You ready? You ready? I'm gonna ask you some
Mhm.
questions. How many teams in the SEC?
What, 14 now? 14 or
Is it
6
14 or
6
is it 16?
14 it might be 16.
How many teams
Man.
in the SEC? I think it's 16.
Yeah, I
I'm
think it is
looking here.
16.
It's 16. Okay, you ready?
Yeah, 16. 16. Let's
Okay.
go.
There's 16 quarterbacks.
Yep.
Total yards for the season. Jackson Arnold is 16.
Man.
Average. Jackson Arnold is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. It says 15, but there's a 19, which is weird. I think he's 17. Okay.
Wow.
TDs. Jackson is 11. Interceptions. By the way, interceptions. Jackson is very low, which is good. He's very low, which he had 3 interceptions on the year, which is a good number. Sacks. Jackson's 1. So he's number 1 in sacks. And by the way, he didn't start 2.5 games or however many games, right?
Yeah.
So statistically speaking, we're talking about our quarterback versus his peers. He's 16 out of 16 in total yards. He's 16 out of 16 in yards per game. He's 16 out of 16 in he's 1 out of 16 in sacks allowed. All right. And he's 11 out of 16 in TDs. That's our quarterback versus the rest of the quarterbacks in the SEC. Now, schedule matters, right? Jackson plays Texas schedule versus our schedule. That's a totally different schedule. However, we will never know. We had to play our schedule. And by the way, our schedule next year is equally bad, potentially worse, because we trade Tulane for Michigan. So there's that. Okay. So
Brother.
now when you talk about next year, my exit interview with Jackson is, listen, son, you played hard. You finished what you started. Guys, it's very important to me. And I think the business professionals and even the leadership individuals will say one thing that in today's world, a lot of people don't like adversity and they'll quit. They'll quit their job, they'll quit on their marriage, they'll quit on health, whatever it is, right? I respect the fact that not only did the kid finish, but when asked the question, if you guys saw on Twitter, and I think even the Rivals guys asked, I don't know, I saw a couple different renditions of the question of what's your goals for next year. And he said, hey, there's no reason to not want to be here. I want to pay attention to who the OC is going to be. To me, that's tangibly worth something. I want guys on my team that want to be here. And I think he strategically, I think it was intelligent. The way he framed his response gives the appearance or the impression that he wants to be a Sooner. I want guys who want to be Sooners. So to me, that's a big deal. However, his production doesn't merit the return on investment of 2 commas and 6 zeros next year. Jackson,
Yep.
we appreciate your effort. You're a high character young man. After all the stuff that happened this year, we didn't hear you publicly lash out. We didn't see you put your head down and be a me guy. We didn't see an energy vampire, and you're still a pup as far as I'm concerned. This is me talking to Jackson. But here's the deal. In today's game, you are afforded the ability to earn money for your name, image, and likeness. And as a school, we have the responsibility to pay you your fair market share value. In the SEC, son, you're the 16th quarterback out of 16. We'd love to have you back. We think you'll be a viable part of the team. However, in spring, you've got to earn your way. Off season, you've got to earn your way. After this meeting, I've got to go meet with Hawkins, who's also a pup. And I just want to be very honest with you. I'm going to say the exact same thing to him. In terms of NIL, we can't commit $1 million to you next year. We can't commit $500,000 to you next year. If you stick around, we're going to put our faith in saying that we believe you have the ability to be the guy next season. But I just want you to understand from an economic standpoint, we can't just pay that money out again. Hey, you got it this year. You and your family were able to leverage whatever it was, the $1 million that we gave you. And we're not going to ask for any of that back, but we are going to ask for your loyalty. And we are going to let you know next year, if you come back, it's going to be for $100K. It's going to be the $50K we give everybody plus an additional $50K. If you kill it next year, I think it's a conversation we can revisit after next season, assuming you decide to stick around. If not, you're going to go to the league and make a ton of money. Son, thank you for everything you did. We appreciate your hard effort, your energy, and your commitment to the team. Speak to your family, pray on it, whatever it is you need to do. And hey, looking forward to seeing you get ready for the bowl game. If not, let us know how we can support you on your way out. I don't think there's anything else to be said in that conversation. You got to be transparent. You got to be direct. You got to have some data. You got to tell them how you feel. And I don't think there's another conversation with Jackson Arnold where you don't also mention Michael Hawkins, because you've got to have a quarterback coming back, assuming we're also going to have a quarterback in the portal. But the kid he just didn't earn the right to be entrenched at anything. He did not earn $1 million in a game where players are paid to pay. Paid to play. He didn't earn it. And so I'm not going to sugarcoat that. I'm not gonna like patty cake it. I think you shoot him straight, you shoot his dad straight. And if he makes a decision to leave, you've got to look at it as we have a free agent pool where that $1 million can go to somebody who potentially next year could merit the $1 million. You don't hamstring yourself and say, because we gave it to him and he was an elite 11 and all these other things, that this year he was the 16th best quarterback in the conference. That, like, feelings aside, that's what his numbers convey. And so I think that's an important conversation to have. I was going to joke around, but I don't think we need to joke around. This is a pretty sensitive and serious situation with the Q. And it is what it is.
Yeah, I think if this were a contract year, he would have a real tough time getting re-signed. Right? That think NFL, think, guys like Flacco who have balled out in contract years, guys like Cam Newton who have struggled in contract years. It makes a huge difference.
Are you seeing this?
I,
Pettaway's in the portal and Marcus
yeah,
Harris decommit. Is that true? That just
yeah,
happened? Oh
yeah.
my
I
God.
saw that. I saw that.
Holy
Which, man, Pettaway makes a whole lot of sense. You wonder what has happened there with that, and what the issues are. It does make me say, all right, so here would be my take, right? Is that OU has potentially named an OC already, and players are catching wind of who that is. And it's just maybe there are other guys who are going to come in, be a better fit, be a different fit. There's already eyes on different guys. To me, that may be the case. Venables, when he talked about the OC position in his post game, he almost seemed as if they maybe have the guy that they want. He's just still playing football right now. But whoever it is, they need to have him stop. And then that team needs to be on the interim, because you cannot get behind in the portal.
It's not
Not
gonna
in
happen.
this day and age.
It's not gonna
Yeah.
happen.
You
It's not
just
gonna happen.
you just can't.
They're not going to do that
It's
though. A coach is not going to quit on his guys because this job is a one-time stop in their career. And if you get that reputation of quitting on your team while there's still games to play,
a good point.
unless they're in a chicken noodle soup bowl game, you know what I'm saying, like the one we're going to
Oh,
be
that
in.
yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah.
But if
I
they've
think
got
it
a
does
bowl
depend
game
on
to
where they're
play,
at.
yeah, if they've
It
got
depends
chicken
on where
noodle
they're
soup
at.
bowl game at what's the name of that dang city in the panhandle of Texas? What's the name of that city I always drive through when I'm taking 40 west? What's the name of that dang
Oh,
city? Amarillo. There it is. If we're in the Amarillo chicken
Amarillo by
noodles,
morning,
if
up
we're in
from
the
San
Amarillo,
Antonio.
I don't see Petaway. Is there confirmation that Petaway hit the portal? I said it after Tennessee. Petaway showed that he's a big time power four guy. He stepped up in a game
Yeah.
that we had some injuries early on, and to be honest with you, there is no excuse for a guy who played quality reps last season, a returning guy who was a high 4-star recruit by many publications, to just, after having a really good game. Uh-oh, I didn't plug my battery in. Sorry. After having a really big game, not play again. I
Yeah.
honestly don't know why that happened. And yeah, wish
Yeah.
him the best. Want nothing but the best for him.
What one guy, and this is I'm gonna kind of take this one, because I was really high on him when he got to Oklahoma, and I think we are just going to have to wait and see. But if he were in an exit interview, he had a hell of a game last night. But my encouragement to him would be
Who is that?
one more season. I'm talking about R. Mason Thomas.
Who?
I think
Oh, okay.
RMT has played this last half of the year like a guy who wants to get drafted, and who could. Last night whooped arguably one of the best eligible tackles for the NFL draft this year, in Campbell for LSU. He is one of the best on the board. He'll probably be a top 10 pick, and RMT took him to the woodshed. But and RMT was a guy who, I think you have to give Chavis his due in this case, because RMT has improved this year. I think a lot of that has to do with him being healthy. But if he is able to come back for one more season, because this year, right now, I think with his injury history, and this would be my argument to him, with his injury history, his ups and downs in games, his inability to be a massive factor in the more of like the stabilizing plays, the run plays, those types of things where he does get washed down a little bit sometimes because of his size. I would argue you need one more year, one more year of growth. And if he comes back next year, DMAC, he's probably preseason All-American. He's for sure preseason All SEC. I would almost guarantee it. You're coming back now with a second year Jaden Jackson, a second year David Stone. You've got some more depth that has been accumulated there. Yes, you lose an Ethan Downs, but you are the perennial playmaker on the defensive line. I think his take is going to be he has had injuries, he has had stuff not go his way. Get it while the iron is hot. And I think we'll probably find out the next day or so. We'll find out pretty quick what he wants to do, I would imagine. Maybe he strings it out. I don't think so. Guys have usually been pretty quick on the trigger with this because you're trying to get into prep mode for the combine. That is why players shut it down for the bowl game. It just has to do with recovery, getting your body shifted from football mode to underwear Olympics mode. It's a different thing. But I think he needs one more season. I think he's a guy who could benefit from an OU defense that I still think, yes, you are losing Stutzman, but we've talked about it. It is a defense that still has a chance to be at least as good, if not better. And they will be better.
Substantially better.
And they will be better just by nature of the offense being improved. If you get an OC who is worth his salt, go ahead. I want to hear your thoughts. Go ahead.
I'm just gonna say, to me, I think RMT is very simply it's economics now, right? In the same side, or on one side of your mouth, you're saying, "Hey, Jackson, you're not worth $1 million." On the next side of your mouth, you say, "Hey, RMT, you're gonna be an XY." I mean, he's a rusher, so maybe he's a first round guy. I don't know, but if let's say he's a top 3 round guy, you're gonna make $2 million. What if we pay you $1 million to stick around for another season? That's the conversation that's going to determine whether he stays or goes, in my opinion. Like you said, it wasn't
think he
just
is fringe third, fourth right now. If I was
whatever
guessing,
he
I
is.
think he's at a 4th round.
Watch this though. It's no longer just the draft. It's his valuation in the draft, and it's his valuation to our team. And so you remove RMT from that defensive front, who's the edge guy that's going to come in and make a difference. You can't say Ford because he's graduating. So even though Ford had a second half good, his second half was a solid second half. He's out of there. Woolard out of there. He's a senior. Downs out of there. RMT has a ton of leverage, and so that's a guy who you've got to say, hey man, you're second, third round guy. That's going to pay you 2.5, 1.8, whatever that number is. I don't know what that number is. We're willing to pay you $1 million to stay in college and be a scholastic, a student athlete one more year. That's to me what it's going to boil down to. Mom and dad are hey, we can get paid if we go to the NFL, or we're going to get paid if we stick around. And that's the game we play now. And Gary, we talked about this off the air. And I'll just go ahead and fit it in here. In my opinion, OU is still playing 2 renditions of the game of college football in the past. The team that I played on, you're not going to see teams like that anymore. You're just not going to see it, right? I mean, go around at the top teams and you look at what those teams possess, and it's not what we possessed. Oregon's winning with our guy at quarterback last year, right? Oregon had a really good transfer portal season. Ohio State, even though they got their tails because they're not as physical as Michigan, Ohio State is winning with the biggest portal haul in college football, and it still didn't get them to the playoffs. By the way, Georgia should have lost that game. Home cooking reffing in the SEC. Not gonna belabor and complain too much, but gosh dang, all the 50-50 calls, I don't even want to talk about that PI call when they're down 14, it's 4th down, and they call pass interference against Georgia Tech on a play where Georgia is holding a guy by his collar so he can't sack the quarterback, and they don't call it. But the guy from Georgia Tech kind of does just a chicken wing, just a baby one, and they call the penalty on 4th down.
Oh, buddy.
But even Georgia, guys, they're a play away from losing that game. But guys, these guys are dominating the portal. The biggest, best players in America are wanting to go to those schools. OU has to catch up. Texas, A&M, you name these schools, and they are understanding. And for OU fans, let me say something to you. I just checked Rivals. I checked Twitter real quick. We got to stop complaining about high caliber 18-year-old recruits that are decommitting or portaling. They haven't done nothing. College football gives you the ability to replace an 18-year-old prospect with a potential 20 to 21-year-old proven commodity. So if we potentially lose 3 to 5 recruits, which I'm not going to diminish recruiting because it's still it's a very important aspect of your offseason, but the portal is at least as important. So if we lose 2 freshmen who we thought could be players and 3 recruits who we thought were going to be studs, but we replaced them with 5 guys who know SEC football or big time Power 5 football from Penn State or Ohio State or Oregon or whatever, Clemson, and those guys come in ready made like a Terry, right? Right? Terry's a guy who had a huge impact second year in the program, but my point is,
Yeah,
like,
that's a great
I
point.
am no longer, I said this the first year NIL came out. And I said, guys, I feel like NIL is going to change the landscape of the game because you're literally allowing grown men who know what they're doing to go to another program and be a contributor
Free
immediately.
agency, 100%. Free
Versus
agency.
it's versus Jackson Arnold. Who would have said it was a bad idea to let DG go and let Jackson Arnold have the ropes, especially with the quality reps he got in last season? He got enough reps for us to see, oh, this kid's got something. And then this year, we see what he is when he's the guy versus Cam Ward transfer. Versus the kid who comes to Vandy with the coach, because right, that guy's at New Mexico State. He steps up to the SEC. He's 5'11", 205 pounds, balling. So I am not gonna, sky is falling. Oh my God, tar and feather everybody until I see how we address the portal. Now, if we address the portal the way we addressed it last season, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna call Josh Heupel and say, hey, bro, when I'm done being a business professional in the next 2 to 3 years, I want to come coach with you, because Josh and Tennessee know what to do. If OU stays in the Flintstone ages or still trying to get their car started with their feet versus having an electric Porsche, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's going to be a long-term detriment to our program. And I'm waiting to see that. Marcus Harris is, if you guys know the story, the kid never even came to OU before he committed. He's from California. We had a terrible season. Not surprised he's going to look other places. He probably saw some other schools he liked or has some other schools in mind he liked. By the way, good player, not a difference maker based upon the film that I saw. He's a guy who's going to play Power 4 and could be a stud. He's not a guy who's a program changer. He's a guy who's now Scally can be another portal player for
100%.
us. To me, we need that value. Petaway is a guy who I liked him this year. After Tennessee, I was like, he needs to be featured. We didn't feature him. Gosh, I wish Petaway could have got some of Bauer Sharp's tight end screens.
The end arounds, let him be a threat. Yeah, man, you've got, like, it made no sense to me. You know, one of the things that like Florida did when Urban Meyer was there that made an offense like that go was they just put their skill guys in really good position to be successful. And when you've got a guy like Reagan's who, if the play is a potential loss anyway, wouldn't you rather your 4-2, who, if he gets loose, D-Mac, he is gone. There is nobody catching him if he's gone. Like, if he gets around the corner, that's lights out. And you're going to give that play to Sharp. It just makes no sense, right? And it's not like Sharp has been consistent with the ball, right?
Unless he's your position coach. Unless you're his position coach.
It just makes no sense. I want to talk a little bit about the roster changes because, right, they're up in the scholarship number, right? So that's basically every player now on a college football roster is essentially going to be a scholarship athlete. So there is no wasted spots. What they did was they cut from 139 to 105. So the guys who are entering the portal from that band of guys, I know who some of them are. I trained some of them. A lot of those players, and this is no disrespect, it's just the reality. A lot of those players, I see like the abundance of guys available. Those are going to be walk-ons. Those are going to be guys who are maybe a walk-on or preferred walk-on, fringe scholarship guy. What I think you're speaking to, D-Mac, is now in this day and age, you cannot have so many long-term development project commits filling up your roster. You have to be an elite program. You've got to have a few of those guys, right? But if you, and I know this is going to sound like sacrilege, right? But what if you traded a guy like PJ for a second-year guy at Georgia who was really productive this year, right? Who says,
Are you asking me what I would do?
Yeah, like, what would you do?
What has PJ done?
Nothing.
There's the
Yeah.
answer to your
So
question.
there's the answer, right? So you cannot have a roster where you're part of the guys on your really, I would say, three deep are unproductive players, right? You've got to have, to the best you can, as many high level scholarship players as possible, right? NIL changes the whole thing. The transfer portal changes the whole thing. I do think some of the rules that have gone in right now, guys, if you transfer in conference, you got to sit. I know it's like that in the SEC, so you can't just immediately play. There are some rules that have
Time
been put
out.
in place.
Texas has definitely taken Bama receivers who have played and been first round draft picks.
Yeah, but I think it's just this year that that goes
So
into effect.
they just
Pretty sure.
they integrated it this
Mhm.
year. That
Yeah,
sucks for
yeah,
us. That
yeah.
sucks for us. That sucks for us.
So I think so, guys. Hit me in the comments. I'm pretty sure that that's the reality of the new situation. But you're right,
Can I
man.
speak to the
Texas
can I
has
speak to the
won. Go,
105?
go
Let me
ahead.
speak
Go
to the
ahead.
105 real quick. I went to the
Go for it.
and I'm gonna say this, and I don't care if people hear this. I'm gonna say this. Last week I went to Tennessee versus UTEP. By the way, I've been home for OU games on many occasions, and I do want to say the last couple times I've gone, no, that's not true. Every time I've gone home, and I've said this on our pod, I know how to advocate for myself. So when I go home, meaning OU games, I get taken care of, and not to, it's not an ego thing. It's a like, damn it, blood, sweat, and tears. I literally gave up my head on this team and won a natty. Damn it! If I come to the game, I'm not paying. If I come to the game, I want access to the alumni stuff. Whatever the alumni stuff is, I want access to. And I am the kind of guy who is assertive to do that, and I have been afforded that treatment. And I'm only referencing this because, and I want to make sure this isn't thrown at BV because he has corrected it. Lots of OU alumni have tried to come home to games, scholarship, local guys, if just not current NFL guys. Current NFL guys, red carpet. Even guys who played in the NFL and no longer in the NFL, I've had guys who were literally not allowed to go in the game. That's an indictment more on LinkedIn than it is on BV. BV has stuff set up for the guys, and I want to make sure I say that. However, 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 um, guys, I went to a Tennessee game. They gave me Tennessee gear. I didn't come equipped for the weather. Josh was like, "Oh, Mac, yeah, we got you." They didn't let me wear it for the game. They gave it to me. Anytime I've ever gone to an OU game, we get sideline privileges during pregame. And then when the game's 10 minutes for the game, 20 minutes for the game starts, we got to go up. Guys, Hype gave me sideline privileges for the entire game. All
Mm.
right. My hotel stay was taken care of. I'm saying that to say, um, you know, we've got to do a better job of taking care of our own. And it leads me to this. So when I got there, he gave me access to his personal assistant and their general manager. Dope, right? They and by the way, literally, they wanted to feed us the whole nine. I'm talking to his GM, and we're on the sideline. This is before the game, and he's talking about the 105. And he said, Mackie, the biggest issue we're gonna have with the 105 limitation is practice. He
Mm.
said, just to run a coordinated practice, you're going to have your 5 to 8 receivers that are going to be travel squad receivers, right? So, like when I played at OU, there were 5 of us that played on any given Saturday. Me, Josh, Wolf, Sav, Kurt, right? Like we were the 5 who were going to get the lion's shares of the snaps, and then we'd have 2 or 3 more. J Mac, Julius McMillan, Ryan Daniel, whatever, Mark Clayton, Willie P. One of those freshmen will get to come up with us. This is the 2000 season. And so those are 8 that are on offense. Those guys are not running scout because they got to be prepared for all the game planning that's going to happen for the game week, right? You need 8 more on defense. And so what he was saying is, when you go from 135 or 39, whatever that is, to 105, generally you have 8 scout receivers. So you can run groups of 3 where you've got 2 groups of 3, and then you've got 2 guys who can spell, right? You're going to go from
Yeah.
like 8 to like 5, and you got all this
Mm.
tempo. And he said the same thing that I felt when I was playing. By midway through the season, our legs were done because you just run so much as a wide receiver. You're running posts all day. Pat and go you're just running all day. It's all day running. And then half that time you're competing against another D1 caliber scout guy or a D1 caliber defensive guy. It's competition. And it's rough on your legs. He's like, Mackie, we're concerned about how we are going to address positions like receiver, positions like O-line. right? Those positions where there's a lot of, that's a lot of hitting on the offensive line position, and you're going to lose 3 to 5 offensive linemen, 2 to 4 defensive linemen, right? Those numbers, they're already doing the math on what that impact is going to be. There's going to be more scholarship guys, which is dope, which is good, but the amount of people that are required in the current landscape of college football to run an effective practice is going to dramatically change. And so it's going to be interesting, Barry. They don't have the answers. They were telling me, he was like, Mack, I can't tell you everything because I know you're a Sooner. I was like, you damn right I'm a Sooner. I'm wearing orange today, but I'm a damn Sooner. He was like, I heard you. By the way, they listen to our podcast. Pretty dope, right? The GM
Let's
for UT.
go.
Yeah, he listens to the podcast. And but he was like, we're gonna try some different things. And he said, here's the deal. Some teams are gonna lose games during the season because they don't have a plan in place for how to address the 105. And I was like, damn, you're right. Guys are going to get hurt in
Great
practice who otherwise wouldn't get hurt. There's going to be fatigue and, all that different stuff. And of course, we have our own medical issues. Go figure. Just hearing that piece is going to be a game changer. We're going to see how that whole thing plays out. Teams and their preferred walk-on programs are going to run out. You're not going to have, OU's not going to be able to do the 3 or 4 guys a year that they put on Scally for their senior year, simply because you're not going to have those guys on the team anymore. And so, yeah, I'm looking at the OC. Let's talk about that OC stuff next. But anyway, that 105 deal, it's a game changer.
Yeah, it completely is, man. I know guys who it affects kind of very negatively, right? There's some guys who are going to get some positive out of it, but I know for walk-ons, for guys like, let's just keep it OU, right? Your Heineke's, your Jacob Jordans, players like that, you're going to have much fewer of those stories, right? I know a lot of Bixby players came to Oklahoma this past season as walk-ons, right? Those guys are probably going to be leaving the program and going elsewhere. So you're cutting ties potentially, and this is that not to like stay in the get Oklahoma kids kind of vein, but you also kind of cut the lifeblood of being able to do that as often as easily, right? Because a guy like Heineke, who is a legacy, who has good genetics, good genes, families, Oklahoma, you probably can't bring them on in the same way, right? Maybe on that you figure it out, you offer him a scholarship or whatever, but I will just say it's going to be tougher. But guys, we've saved the best stuff for last today. DMAC, I want to move to talking offensive coordinator. And before I do, I want to just give you the top offenses in college football right now. Right.
Sure.
Let's go. Let's see if we can find some good numbers right here.
Hey, while you're doing that, I think we got confirmation.
Go for it.
You can transfer within conference in the first portal season. So
That's what it is.
I think SC guy can go from SEC to SEC so long as it's for February 1. So I saw that in the comments. Appreciate you guys for that. That's love.
All right, perfect. So let's go. We're gonna go offensive football, and let's do. See if we can find this here. Let's go total. Let's do total offense. So here are your top offenses in college football, DMAC, and tell me if there's a team that you hear of like, oh man, let's go get that guy. So this is in order, top 10. Miami number 1. Miami number 1. They're averaging 7.6 yards a play, 538 yards a game. Ole Miss number 2. Right, I don't know who's that. I don't know if you go get a guy from Ole Miss. Those are the teams averaging 7 yards a play this year. North Texas, number 3.
Skip.
New Mexico, number 4.
Skip.
Boise State, 5. Texas State, 6.
Skip.
And Texas State has one of the guys that, yep.
Skip.
Utah State, 7.
Skip.
Clemson, 8.
Wow. Interesting.
Yep. 6.45 yards a play, 465 yards a game, run 866 plays this year. Tennessee is 9th, and their offense has gotten a little better as the year has gone on. And I'm just going to go, let's go ahead and go top 15 since we're already doing it. An interesting one to me, DMAC, is 10 Texas Tech. 5.88 yards a play. They are getting about 456 yards a game. And then 11 through 15, you've got Syracuse, Louisville, Arkansas, Texas, Oregon. Is there any team you hear like total offense and go like man, that sounds like a team where, oh, you should go look at that guy? Were any of those teams that gave you that kind of flavor, or man, maybe we should check out what they're doing?
So you know me, bro. I'm off the cuff, and I we made a pod, which apparently people across the, I mean, people were starting to see if Coley was really going to be an option. And although Coley is not an option, apparently, from what I'm hearing, that's still the makeup of the OC we need. I think even more so than midseason when Seth was relieved of his duties and we brought in Joe John. Listen, we don't have a good understanding of what SEC good is. By the way, OU as a program doesn't. And I think that's one of the things that Texas had as an advantage over us, was that Sark was able to leave Bama and say, yo, this is what it's got to look like going into the SEC. If it doesn't look like this, we can't compete with a Bama. We can't compete with a Georgia, because Sark was there and was playing or coaching winning football. So if we're turning over the entire regime and BV's out, I am okay with the Texas State or an up and comer. I'm okay with that because you're building together. But BV has already started to build the foundation of who his name is going to be in the OU lore. He can't. I'm sorry, guys. This is my opinion. We can't afford Utah State, Texas State. We can't afford it, because those guys could go all the way through fall camp with what we have. Number one, they're going to be impressed with our personnel versus theirs. Number two, they're not going to know if, like, we're running GT counter, we're running pull the guard power, we're running the sniffer tight end through the hole, and we're running power pass off of that. If it's SEC good, we can't risk, just same way we can't risk Jackson Arnold, who has gone through an entire year of SEC football being the guy. He can't be the entrenched guy because he was and he didn't perform. We can't risk Syracuse. Are you kidding me? We can't risk Syracuse. The Syracuse guy is going to come in his first week on the job. He's just going to look at our freaking trophy case. He's going to be like, oh my God, I'm at Oklahoma. We don't want that guy. We need a guy who's going to come in here in his first week's going to say, that guy's not big enough. That guy's feet's too slow. That guy needs to be 100 pounds heavier in the weight room. Like, dude, Mackey, you got, or BV, you guys are going to get dominated against Kentucky because those guys are dogs. They're not the most athletic or the most gifted, but Kentucky knows SEC ball, and they're going to put dogs in. Kentucky's going to kick your ass. We need that. That's probably play calling's number one. I'm with you guys. I'm with the people who are like, Mackey, play calling is number one. Recruiting is probably number 2A, but 2B has to be a guy who can be at a standard of what the SEC requires to win. Or what are we doing? We're playing Russian roulette in a year where BV doesn't have room to play Russian roulette. So as I take your list, listen, do you want to hear my newest take? Here's Mackey's hot take. It's probably going to I'm probably going to sound like a dumbass. I don't care. I stand on business. I don't know who Texas co-offensive coordinator is. I'm going after him. I'm going after Texas's co-OC. You guys don't like their offense? You know how many people say, I like Sark's offense. We know Sark calls the plays. Just like we know at Ole Miss, my man calls the plays. Yeah. Guys, this is not college football 2010, 2008, Vince Young and Pete Carroll and Urban Meyer. This ain't that game. Right? Tomlin made a quote today. He said, listen, this is Tomlin, the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Why are you using the NFL coach? Because the college game is closer to the NFL than it is to college 10 years ago. That's why I'm using the NFL coach's comment. His quote was, I don't care how we do it. This is what he said. You guys can, I'm sure the quote's available on the internet, but he said it today. He said, I don't care how we do it. What we need to do is stack W's. The game is all about W's now. The game is not about which coach is going to be the best father figure. 90% of OU fans say, I love Brent. He's the best man in the world, but I want another coach. Right? So we've got to go get a guy. I want to know what Texas is doing at practice. In the last 2 years,
Yeah.
they're better than us. They're more physical than us. They're more sound than us. They have more creativity than us, right? And that's why that was the basis behind Coley. We did a little digging, literally live on our
Yep.
pod, and you found out that he was a recruiting coordinator and he's a good recruiter, and he was, whatever. We can't say his name because he's not in the mix. But like, you guys are throwing out like all these Texas State and BV doesn't have that luxury, in my opinion. If I'm BV, Texas did it to Bama. They went and got Bama's OC to be their head coach, and look what happened, right?
Well, even Ohio State goes and gets Chip Kelly.
Dude,
like, well,
Georgia
why can't
did it to Bama.
Oklahoma do the same?
Exactly. Like, it blows my mind that people like Mackey, like, all I'm telling you is the framework from which we need to consider this. It's what SC did to us. SC did it to us. Georgia did it to Georgia. Oregon did it to Georgia. Like, the big boys are saying we've got to go get entrenched big boys. And Oklahoma is supposed to be a big boy. And we're talking about Texas State and Utah State and Wazoo. Wazoo, they got 14 points against Wyoming. Granted, Wyoming, I think, beat Texas a couple years ago, but shout out to talking smack about Texas. But like, I don't understand it, Barry. And when we make the hire, and if it's a Spavital or you know who I like? I do like the guy from Georgia Tech. I do like the way they scheme up their plays. Faulkner. Yep. I like him.
And he's done it though against some elite teams. And I think 100%. That to me is and he's seen elite football. I know he's been at some Power 5 places.
I think he's got some SEC. Hold on, let me look it up right now. I'm pretty sure he's got some SEC roots.
Yeah, there's no reason, like, it has baffled me that I think it's interesting that OU has it in their minds. A lot of fans have it in their minds that he was at Georgia.
Yep.
The Georgia Tech coach. Yep.
Yep.
I knew he had been somewhere.
It blows my mind, Barry.
Why does it have to be air raid, small school, when OU is supposedly now big SEC money? And it's not that those guys, I said this on X. One of the reasons that Bob was able to go get a guy like Riley is the bones of the program were there. Bob knows what a championship team looks like. He wanted a guy who ran a scheme like what he won with early on in his career. He says it. That's why he went to go get Riley. And I think he saw something in him. But Bob, at that time, D-Mac, had 15 years of winning pedigree. He had yes, OU was at kind of a crossroads, but Bob had the ability to stick his neck out and take a little bit of a risk, and even then it was a calculated risk, right? I think.
Can I say something else? Go ahead. That was really important about that. The timing about the Lincoln Riley, the Lincoln Riley comparison is a red herring, because Lincoln Riley was a disciple of the in vogue offense that was changing college football at that time. At that time, one of the main reasons Link was a name that was coming up is because he was a Leach disciple when the entire SEC was trying to adopt aspects of the air raid, right? And so now watch this. Let's take a timeline. The SEC for years, and everybody who's listening to this pod knows this, the SEC was a conference where you pulled the guard, you ran power pass, you kicked field goals, it was ball control, right? The offense and defensive line won you games. And what did the SEC do? The SEC said, hey, we're going to still keep that component because we got the best big men athletes in America. The big man athletes, the best, the most volume of them are the southeast portion of America, right? We're gonna include, we're gonna compound, we're going to expand upon the air raid, but keep that power principle. So what has happened 15 years since? Teams have said, what if we take traditional RPO, speed option, power option, and have a spread component so that we can keep? Guys, I've said it for years. All you really need of the air raid in terms of bones is the quick game, the screen game, and the misdirection. You can keep. By the way, Mangino did it. That's how we won the Natty. Go watch our film from 99 and 2000. In 99, we were true air raid. Halfway through 2000, Mangino was like, we're running power football. We started pulling the damn guard, right? We started running That's how Quentin scored 6 touchdowns against Texas. Actually, I think that's 2000. That's the 2000 game.
It's
So
2000. Yep.
when you look at today, what is Faulkner doing? Faulkner can throw the ball. If you watch the Georgia game, their quarterback, they threw action, they threw misdirection, they threw power pass. That's not hard to teach. What I've told you a million times. Pre-snap, you look at coverage, the guys know where the holes are supposed to be. The receivers sit, the ball's coming. That's how you read and react in that space. We need somebody who knows power football in the SEC and say, hey, along the offensive line, we need this. Along the defensive line, we need that. And the game has changed to where the most powerful teams now are running the football. When Bama was winning championships with Tua and those other guys, they were using the air raid concepts in the pass game, but they were still using SEC concepts in the run game.
Oh yeah.
They were still pulling that damn guard. They incorporated some RPO stuff, right? So I just don't understand. We have an opportunity, and I'm going to say what I have to say. I'm going to speak my opinion in our platform and say it, but like, I am going to be tremendously disappointed if people try to say the reason we chose Arbuckle is because of Link. Link made sense because he was a direct disciple of the style of offense that Mike Leach transcended into the entire football landscape 15 years ago when that was in vogue and the SEC was behind. Saban came out and said, hey, how do we defend this? Saban got mad, and then he learned the game. Now the SEC knows that you can't just win with the air raid anymore. You got to be able to run the damn football. I don't want any Texas State, A&T, University, Northern Western, you know what I'm saying? University of the Blind Men and Women to be our OC. We need to do Oregon, Georgia, Ohio State, the guys who are playing for the ships right now. Like, okay, you could say Indiana, but we know they played one real game. Right, they played one real game. They got manhandled against Ohio State. The big boys that are our echelon of blue chips, blue bloods, they are going to get the best. Lanning was one of the best, right? Chip Kelly was a guy who had one of the very best offenses in America, and of course, they still couldn't beat Michigan. But if we go get an Arbuckle, I'm gonna get behind it. I'm gonna say, okay, I'm gonna hope, and we talk about hopium.
Let's hope. Yeah.
But we got, I don't know who Texas co-OC is. We got to talk to him. We got to talk to Coley. We got to talk to him. We got to talk to these guys who know the conference. Josh Heupel's OC, I don't know who he is. Listen, Josh ain't going to do OU no favors. He's not doing OU no favors. This is an economic-based game now. By the way, I was watching Tennessee's offense. I love it. The truth of the matter is, you know why their offense dropped a little bit during the middle of the season?
Well, why is that?
Because their quarterback was missing wide open receivers. He was inaccurate. That was the problem. And if you watch I've been watching in the last 3 weeks very closely. All he's doing is making the RPO reads and hitting the guy on the bang 8 slant. That they are the king of the bang 8 slant, the king of the inside curl, the outside curl. Josh runs it all day. 1v1. He gets a 10 on 10. He has that backside guy. Whenever he wants it, he runs the hitch, the inside curl, the outside curl, that bang 8 slant, and they kill people with it because you've got to respect their run game. It's not a hard concept, but they know SEC good running backs, tight ends, tackles, receivers. And to me, that's 50% of the beast. Yeah, A&M. I'm with you guys, A&M. We've got to go find one of those guys who understands the conference we're in, that is winning in this conference, and put ourselves in a position to go be competitive in that regard. That's my take.
Yeah. I want to look at, so just to hear, this was an early list early in the year. So this is 4 months ago. This was starting the season, but I think it's just like, here's some of the guys that you could, essentially go look. And if some of these guys aren't on there anymore, so Chip Kelly, this is best OCs, and we're going to start at the top. Will Stein at Oregon.
Love him.
Warren Ruggiero at Wake Forest.
By the way, I don't hate him. Keep going.
Bobby Petrino at Arkansas, right? He ran the A&M offense last year. A&M brought in Colin Klein, who's running their offense now.
Time out. Petrino's been the OC at Arkansas this year? How did I miss that? Interesting. Huh.
So
he's got He's got some baggage and skeletons and things of that nature.
Yeah, but so did Levy. Who cares? You got
Facts.
Mike Denbrock at Notre Dame, right?
I
He
hate
was
their
a tight
offense.
ends coach. You're not a big
I hate.
fan. You've
They don't.
got
They can't throw the ball enough. You gotta throw the ball.
you got Weiss at Ole Miss, who I don't think you go after a guy like that.
No, because he's not really the play caller.
Yeah. Kirby Moore at Missouri.
No.
Chip Kelly at Ohio State.
No.
Andy Kokolnecki at Penn State.
I don't hate him.
You got Garrett Riley at Clemson.
I especially you telling me their offense. He's had to go against some dudes this year, even though they got curb stomped against Georgia. But that's a hire I wouldn't hate. I wouldn't hate it.
Yeah, I mean, you got to if he was the best available, right? You got Andy Ludwig at Utah.
Somebody said hire the Texas Army coach. Hold on. Somebody said hire I'd be all in, but we'd be connected.
Oh,
if
they, there you go.
Do you know who their coach is?
Who was it?
He was a Sooner, man. He was 80s backup, and he transferred to Georgia Tech.
Come
on.
Who is it? Oh my gosh. Is it who played back
he
then?
Played for the Cowboys.
Did he really? How am I missing this guy? Was it Alan Patrick? No.
Look in the comments, bro. Look in the comments.
Tashard Choice. Oh man. Okay. I know about Tashard.
By the way, I don't. No. I don't think he's a good fit, but I mean, I'd be in because
that's funny though.
Connected. That's my little bro. That's my guy.
Yeah. That's awesome. So you got Mike Bobo at Georgia, right? We talked about him.
He'd never leave.
Coley,
to me, that just makes too much sense. I don't care what no one says. Coley makes too much sense. It just, to me, it's the best hire for me because he'd want to go.
Yeah.
Anyway, let me stop.
Yeah. Phil Longo at Wisconsin, Kendall Briles at TCU, Tim Cramsey at Memphis, Dirk Cutter at Boise State. Well, what
Memphis
about something like that?
I wouldn't be opposed to Memphis, and Boise. I wouldn't hate it either. Memphis's offense is legit.
So here's their stats. In 6 seasons under Cramsey, Memphis has averaged 36.5 points per game, twice over 40. Quarterback has thrown for 174 touchdown passes. Tigers finished 6th in the country in scoring last year. I want to say they're top 20 this year. And what was their record this year? I don't remember. But yeah, he's had successful offenses, and he's done it now. Now it hasn't been a fluke, right? He's done it for 6 years in a row consecutively, and had another good one this year. Colin Klein at A&M, Chip Lindsey at North Carolina, Eric Bieniemy at UCLA. What you think of that?
I haven't paid enough attention to UCLA. Who gives a damn about their team this year?
Okay. Jake Spavital.
Where is he at?
I know a lot of. He's at Baylor, and he would be Leach air raid.
I know. I like Baylor played Kansas yesterday, and they beat the brakes off of them. He would be second rung for me. So I'm going to give you my pie in the sky. I'm going to give you my realistic, and then I'll give you my second rung once you get done.
Yeah. I'll give you a few more because I want to see what you say about these. Mack Leftwich at Texas State. He's the one who you kind of said, cruise on past that one.
New regime,
just the FCS.
Yeah. We can't. BV would be making a CEO mistake to put trust in something that there's no eyeball test to see if they even know what they're going up against. In my opinion, that's just Mackey's opinion.
Okay. All right, I got 4 more for you, or 5 more. Here we go. Nick Sheridan at Alabama. I don't think he's leaving there.
And I don't like DeBoer's guy. No.
Casey Woods at SMU.
SMU's, by the way, they're going to be a problem for teams in the playoffs. Listen to me when I tell you guys. I watched them play about 4 or 5 times. SMU is going to be a problem for everybody. Whoever plays SMU is not going to have an easy win. They can rush the passer. They've got good DBs. You're going to power. Some SEC teams going to run power football, and I think that's where they're going to try to control the clock and win the turnover battle. But if SMU can score, they're going to be a problem for everybody. And SMU can score. So I like SMU. I don't hate it.
All right. Last 3, we got Jeff Grimes at Kansas, who had struggles this year. Zach Kitley at Texas Tech,
No.
and then Joe Sloan at LSU. If Kelly gets canned, which I don't think he will. I think that buyout is still insane. I just don't see it happening. But if he does, like Sloan played a critical role in the development of Heisman Trophy winner Jaden Daniels at LSU. Obviously, he's had a decent offense this year with Nussmeier. A lot of their issues have been defensively, just being able to, keep teams at bay. But when they've needed to score, like they come back and they beat A&M late. Could be da, 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 da. So what are we thinking?
Pie in the
If
sky.
you give me like top two,
I'm gonna do
because
pie
I
in the
think
sky first.
Arbuckle, I think, is a legit candidate as
He
much
is.
as like it just feels what would I say? It just feels very like generic. It doesn't feel like a hire that's going to necessarily excite anyone.
So pie in the sky for me, the best coordinator in all of football right now is the offensive coordinator at Detroit. So if again, outside the box, again, I'm sorry guys, this is how my brain works. Outside the box, I'm calling Detroit. I'm talking about the Detroit Lions. I'm calling the Detroit Lions, and obviously I forgot their OC's name. They've got all types of support coaches in the NFL. You can have and like kind of like behind the scenes guys. I'm calling them. I'm asking the question like, hey, who's an up and coming guy who is underpaid and is looking for an opportunity? I'm having that conversation. Their offense is extremely dynamic. It's quarterback friendly. It's running back friendly. And it is where football is today. They run the ball to set up the pass. That's how by the way, they run the ball to set up quick game. Right. So that's pie in the sky for me. Again, I'm just saying this because at OU, if our choices are Texas State, Utah State, Pittsburgh, and Wazoo, like all the big boys are laughing at us. I'm just letting you guys know. So my pie in the sky is I'm calling Detroit and I'm seeing what their OC makes because I might go after him too. But if not him, who's the number 2 guy in that regime? And does he want a couple years of college under his belt? Obviously, there's questions about recruiting and stuff that you've got to go through, but that's a call I'm making. Will Stein is pie in the sky. If we could get Will Stein, I mean, could you imagine that? That would absolutely be a phenomenal. Yeah, Ben Johnson's the OC. That absolutely be a phenomenal home run. I don't think he takes a lot of remove from a school that has wallets like Oregon. So that's pie in the sky as far as I'm concerned. Based upon who's actually available, my number 1 is Faulkner, and I heard that he interviewed. I think there's confirmation that he interviewed earlier in the process. I don't know how that all shook out, but he's before everybody to me. I mean, especially confirmation that he was a part of those Georgia teams as a QB coach. I mean, duh, that's our number 1 position we need to make sure we have under wraps going
And
into next
that's
season.
the vein, the genetics you want of your next coach.
And it's and he, to me, having been at Georgia recently enough, he's a guy where if he's coming, there's still going to be some second teamers and high caliber blue chip guys who are going to say, hey, a Georgia dude is going to OU. That's a place I'm going to look for greener pastures. To me, that box is so important that I don't think people are talking about enough. We've got to win the portal season, and we can't win the portal season with Portland State, UTEP, North Texas University, and you know what I'm saying? Some lower tier Big Ten schools. We can't. Michigan State. We cannot. We've got to go get dudes, and doing so. So and in that same vein, I think someone else said it. I like his offense. If it's not Faulkner, I think it's Craddock. And I know he's at Tulane, but he also has SEC roots. He also knows how to set up the run. His offense isn't amazing, but you look at Tulane, they were a top 25 team going into the game last week that they lost. It's just he understands Louisiana. I think there's going to be some pull for him in terms of regional guys out of the area of Louisiana who will be interested in OU at the same time. So if you said, Mackey, what's your top 2 for realistic? It's Faulkner and then it's Craddock. The Wazoo guys who've never been at a big time program, Texas State, the Spavitals and Arbuckles and all those guys. If I'm Brent, and I gotta let Brent, obviously he's gonna stand on his own too. They're a distant third rung for me. I throw a check at Faulkner first, and then, I call Detroit first, and then I throw a check at Faulkner, and then I figure out what Craddock needs to get him and Norman. That's the guys that I would reach out to if it were me.
Man, that awesome stuff. Man, the comments are, it is full flight watching season now. That killed me back when Venables
I hate it.
was
I hate
watching
that season.
the flight. It's like it's too much, man. It is too much. D-Mac, done an hour and a half, man. Wonderful stuff today. Want to thank everybody for hopping on. As always, go over to OU Insider, OUinsider.com. I'm sure D-Mac will have his 10 thoughts up. I bet it'll also have some relation to like the end of the season.
That's exactly what it's going to be.
So I have a feeling like at this point, there isn't much else to say. The offense was, while you were talking about some of that stuff, I happened to be looking at OU's offensive statistics, D-Mac. And
triple digit.
Buddy, triple freaking low man digits. Like they're better. What was the one? They're slightly better than Michigan in some areas, like just slightly. Yards per game down at the bottom, right? Points per game down middle to bottom, right? Rush yards per game squarely down in the bottom half of the country. Pass yards per game. Let's see where they are.
100 and what?
2, 3, 4, 5. They are 112th in pass yards. They don't even average. D-Mac, guess how many yards passing OU is averaging this year? All right, here. First of all, let me give you the teams that they just beat out. Okay. Air Force, Army, Louisiana Monroe, Navy, Iowa, Michigan, Kennesaw State, New Mexico State, Houston, Kent State.
I was going to say I knew Kent State. I just know we only threw for 200 yards against an FCS team. The only team we threw for 200 yards against was FCS. So that's all I need to know. 154.
130.
Oh my God.
There are crappy high school quarterbacks, like awful, like 2A, like who are throwing for more yards against their respective opponents than Oklahoma is putting up right now, with the ball
better
through
than
the air.
I thought.
Better than I thought. It just I actually want to see where they were in. This is just curiosity. In total points, wasn't the worst, but man, the defense scored. How many points did the defense put up this year? Like, if the defense doesn't score in some of those games, what they had a defensive touchdown against LSU last night.
Yeah, they had 3.
I mean, they've had quite a few this season. Auburn. If they don't do that, man, that affects the point total there. It has been rough, but back on track, guys. Want to remind everyone, go over to OU Insider, OUinsider.com. Grab yourself a membership. Going to be doing a zooming in, looking at guys for the end of the season on some of what I'll be posting over there. 5 defensive touchdowns. So let's look at this. OU had 5 defensive scores. So you're going to be accounting for 35 points, right? With the extra point in there. Now I want to look at what their point total was for the year. So let's see here. They put up 292 points this season.
So
and
take 35.
Take the 35 away.
292
which
minus
would
35, 257 divided by 12, 21 points a game.
21 offensive football points a game.
Yep. OU.
It's not good. OU. That's abysmal. That is horrific. Guys, the offseason is going to be a full effect. OU find out what their bowl game is here pretty soon. Going to try and make it to the bowl game just for kicks and giggles this year. We'll see where they're at. Going to be interesting. Hopefully, it's somewhere warm. We shall see. Usually, these SEC locations are usually pretty warm spots. They don't tend to be the colder spots. So, going to be cool to talk about. Obviously, we'll be back again this week talking about the offensive coordinator. If they name someone, I think getting in there talking about scheme, what they bring to the table. Maybe some who's staying, who's going. Next pod. We will definitely be able to. Well, here, before we get off, DMAC, real quick, because I know we talked about the beginning of the show. Give me, before we bounce out, just real quick, like 3 or 4 names offensively. I know we saw Petaway left, and 3 or 4 names defensively who we think are going to portal. Maybe not go draft. Who are some of the? I can give you mine kind of right off the top. Petaway was definitely up there. I think he is going. I mean, he's gone. Hicks is gone. We will see with. So, how much eligibility does Barnes have left? Does he has another year?
This is his third season. He could probably play 2 more because
Yeah.
I think his year is the COVID year, his freshman year.
I wonder if what X-Rob did this year, and depending on who the OC is, what he does. I think that will be very interesting. I think you're going to have one of the 2 quarterbacks. And I said this pre-show, I think if you have to put your NIL eggs in a basket, I think you put your NIL eggs in Michael Hawkins and Devon Mitchell over trying to bring back a Jackson Arnold. And that's just my, Barry's opinion on the thing. I think you got to try and keep Devon Mitchell by any means necessary. On the defensive side of the ball, we'll see. I'm trying to think anybody. I think Devon Sears is probably going to be a guy who portals out. I don't know if he just hadn't been able to really crack the lineup, on the defensive line. Trying to think. I wonder about a guy like PJ DMAC. Now, this was this is second full year in the program. So I wonder about PJ with him not seeing any playing time. Does he stay? Does OU, if he's not developing, does OU ask him to leave to free up a spot? Like, I think that's real discussion. Does a player like, I think Kobe McKenzie, just thinking linebackers, I think Kobe stays, Carter stays, Kip stays. Phil Picciotti, I wonder if a guy like him with some of the guys coming in, developing at backer, does he bounce? I know he's had some injury stuff. I think Jaden Rowe is gone. I think Jaden Rowe is going to get out of here. Forget he's still on the team sometimes, as he should. The Peyton Bowen's probably staying, right? I don't think there's any chance a guy like him leaves. Eli Bowen's staying. Canick is one. You think Canick portals this year? Yeah. That's somebody we have not talked about this whole season, DMAC. There we go.
If you ask me for 3 guys.
Yeah, give me a few guys, man.
The guys that matter, Hicks is out of town. I bet he's going to go and do what Tyree did. Hicks had to play. By the way, did you see how Marcus Majors played the second half of the season? He was kind of the 1B guy, and he's had some impact at Minnesota. Shout out to him.
Yep.
I don't think Barnes is SEC good as your top guy, and I think Barnes wants to be a top guy and probably has earned the right to be a top guy at like an Arizona State, or he might go to like a place like Colorado where they can scheme up some stuff. I don't think he sucks by no stretch of the imagination, but we've got to have a better back as a number 1, and he might garner money. He's played well enough to be like, hey, we want to pay you to come to our second tier P4 school, and I think that, and he's a West Coast guy. He may make that financial decision. Hicks, listen, Eugene Brooks is a guy who never got to sniff the field. He was a high ballyhooed recruit. I'd be interested to see what kind of decisions he and his family makes. He might decide he wants a clean slate. Just a guy who never got to touch the field. Listen, ELP might have played enough for teams to say, we'll pay you to come to a Miami or Florida.
Green kind of deal.
Teams that are willing to pay top dollar, and OU, if we're still in that old regime kind of a play, we lose one of our another up and coming guard. I I still think Jackson leaves. I think it's in Jackson's best interest to leave and in OU's best interest to leave because when you are hamstrung by a guy who had those accolades, however, who played and show you the results he gave you, there is this undertone of I don't want to say entitlement, but expectation. And I just feel like whoever the new OC comes in needs to just very cleanly, clearly, and transparently have an open competition. And I just think OU should pay him max 100K, and another team might be willing to pay him up to half a mil just because of his accolades and his high school pedigree, so on and so forth, and his ceiling. He has an NFL ceiling if you can get it out of him. I think it's in our best interest and his best interest because I think we need to transition to an offense where the quarterback is still an integral part, but we've got a scheme, a system where
Yeah.
we're in 12 and 13 personnel with tight ends and running the football and getting guys in position to be successful. Defensive side of the ball, I don't think you named anybody that's going to kill us. And Picardi and PJ. But again, PJ's a guy who the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. You know what I'm saying? He's a 5-star guy who looks the part and just hasn't played the part. Doesn't mean he can't, but he's not the game has changed from potential to production. That's just the nature of college football now. And with the portal, you can go get guys who have produced if you're willing to pay. It'll hurt to lose, you know, guys like Carter. I don't know if he's as bought in. I mean, the backers generally have a really close knit relationship with BV, so I think BV will have a good handle on the backers. I think Kanik is, with all due respect to the kid, is addition by subtraction. He was always going to be a project. Never played backer, and we still see remnants of that where he's still a step behind everybody else. Rowe is a guy who I've heard 50% of the people say he needs to be playing, 50% of the people saying he's too soft to play. I think we're going to see what he's got at some other school because he's got all the attributes you need. Excuse me. I was watching Peyton, and he's been playing high safety. He didn't play well yesterday. The quarter and a half that I watched, Peyton Bowen, he's 22, right?
Yeah,
23 and 22. Just a guy. And I want to see him elevate his play because he's a big time recruit that we got on obviously the day after signing day last cycle or the cycle 2023 cycle. But he's a guy. If he goes, then that's an Eli thing. And so that's a question that I have. The defensive side of the ball has enough up this name, and unfortunately we got to say it. Can you imagine Jaden Jackson? By the way, I think he's more important than David Stone. Jaden Jackson did it in the SEC week in, week out. He's a guy we're going to have to pay to keep. Somebody's going to offer him $500,000. Somebody's going to offer him $500,000 or, you know, just the nature of what the game is now. That kid, you have to double team him or the defensive ends are going to go crazy. So that's a guy. He's a program guy at this point. He's probably the second or third most important guy on the team going into next offseason as a true pup. So there are a lot of guys, Barry. If you asked me who's gonna go, there's probably 10 guys who it hurts if they do go. The other guys, it's whatever. That sucks because I just hate that we're in that place now because that would be like if D-Mac goes, it doesn't mean anything because I was not a program changing guy, but definitely a glue guy that if I'm on the team, I help us win championships 3-4 years from well, I only played 2. So but that's the nature of the game now. Petaway leaves. We didn't even use him. He should leave. And you should invite him to leave because we didn't want to use him.
Yeah.
PJ, we didn't want to use him, right? Eugene Brooks is a guy who said, why did all these other Howland got to play? Ozita got to play. ELP got to play. How come I didn't get to play? Right. I don't and maybe there's a very clear plan. I think you said something about baby Matt, but I'm just saying this is the game. Like you can't even call these guys, and excuse my candor, guys. I know some people get mad because I curse every once in a while, but you can't even call these guys pussies. They're making economic decisions.
Oh yeah, not
If
anymore. Not this day and age. Yeah.
If there's a guy who OU doesn't even give a chance to play, who was a really top, good top prospect, but some other team's willing to pay him $250, and it's an SEC caliber, or even if it's like I don't know, a Wisconsin or something, you can't pass that up. Not in today's day and age, you just can't. And OU's got to be aware of that, and they've got to address it. And it's interesting. You can't lose a Mitchell. To me, you can't lose a Hawkins. You can't lose an X-Rob. You can't lose an ELP, Brooks, Ozita, Howland. That's the makeup of your O-line to come who played in the SEC this season. Those guys are valuable now. You can't lose a Raggins. Raggins is a guy. It's going to take one hit for him to be a deep threat. If we had a quarterback who could hit him, he would have had 2 or 3 long TDs this year. You can't lose a Raggins. After all the work you put in my opinion, you can't lose a Kearney. He's played the worst of what he's going to play next year. He's going to understand the SEC. You just can't lose those guys now. Defense, you can't lose a Kip. You can't lose a Carter. You can't lose a Stone. You can't lose a Jackson. Jacoby or Jaden. You can't lose an Eli, which means you should not lose a Peyton. And you can't lose 14. And you can't lose Samuel.
14 is a killer. Yeah. You can't lose 14, you can't lose 24. Yep.
Those 10, 11 guys nucleus on offense and 10, 11 guys nucleus on defense, we got to go win the portal. Mackie, I know our fans don't feel this way, but I'm telling you, half the SEC is doing it, guys. I think the portal is more important than recruiting. I think it's more important.
It is.
You got to get those 5 or 6 dudes that are really, really important. You got to fill up the class with some good tight ends, tackle, or guards and stuff, right? Some of those guys that are going to be helpers. But you need 5 or 6 dudes. Again, somebody said it. Indiana did it this season. UW did it a few seasons ago. Miami did it, right? These are teams who had losing seasons, and in it wasn't the recruiting class. By the way, Colorado did it. Colorado went 2-9 with Hunter and Shador last year. Colorado had like 30 dudes left and portaled in like 30 dudes, and they went 9-3 this season. That's a critical aspect of recruiting that our fans, OU fans, have to understand today. I get it. 3 years ago, we were trying to compete with Texas for recruits. Texas is kicking our ass for recruits and portal. Go look at who portaled. Go look who portaled into Texas and who's helping them. And then obviously they're still going to get the cream of the copper recruits. So that whole deal, it's just a change of philosophy we've got to get better at in order to be competitive.
Man, awesome stuff. Guys, know we went pretty long today, but man, season ender. Man, make sure to go follow all the social media. Follow us on X at Barry and Mack SHW. Follow me at BWise Fitness. Follow DMac at D_Mac13. And on Instagram, I'm at BWise Fitness. It's at the Barry and Mack Show and at Dame That Dude. And as I said, go over to OU Insider, grab yourself a membership. I want to thank everyone for hopping on today. Make sure to like, subscribe, share the show. Thank you for tuning in. We will see you soon.